It's the Inglorious Pastords. We're back. Are we live? Is it? Yeah, well.
We are back, Raj. I was trying that little thing called Mannequin Man to see how that would work. You know, sometimes when the light comes on and you're live, you're like deer in the headlamps.
You know, I thought it was funny because sometimes YouTube will just take your voice out. I just thought they just took your motion out. They just
No, it's not YouTube. It's Audacity that has the audacity to take my voice out.
Oh, yes. It's YouTube that takes both of our voices out whenever it wants.
YouTube just decides when we are or not going to have a podcast. Right. I don't think they're going to have one today. Today, they're just going to have a video.
Right.
With no sound.
We don't even know right now whether you can
fun.
Just see us or whether you can hear us. But we are the Inglorious Pastords.
And we are in the midst of an apocalypse. The end of the world. Do you know why, Roger?
Because God said one day the world will come to a screeching halt.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
Yes. Well, I'm just always digging back into the scriptures.
This particular thing was not listed by Jesus in Matthew 24.
Okay. Oh, okay. You're saying there's some impending...
There's an apocalyptic thing that happened today.
Oh.
That tells me the world's ending. You ready? It's why I've got a Starbucks cup today instead of my usual Chick-fil-A teacup.
Okay, well, I'm dying to know, and then just
I've never seen
give me a date of when the
It's not Sunday, and Chick-fil-A is closed for lack of workers. I just realized this morning, I'm like, oh, it's back to school. So all the high school students that were working for them in the mornings just went back to school. They literally said, due to a shortage of workers, we can no longer open until 10:30 a.m.
Wow.
No breakfast burrito for Bruce.
That will affect a lot of people.
No, it was weird. Driving up, I'm like, I thought it was apocalyptic. I really thought rapture for a minute because there was no one in line at Chick-fil-A. And I'm like, is it Sunday? Right. I don't feel like it's Sunday.
How could I have missed that badly?
How could I have missed? It's Wednesday. And Wednesday is the day that we do the podcast. Because the conditions are perfect. But they were not perfect this morning. So I literally drove through the ghost town of cones at Chick-fil-A and then saw a sign that said due to a lack of staff shortage. And I know that's going on all over the country, but it's like the first time and it's trivial, obviously, Chick-fil-A. But when I say trivial, it's not because it affects people's livelihood.
Right.
But then there's other things that are, but what do you do when you run out of air traffic controllers? I mean, it's just interesting to me. Now we're experiencing not just the Delta variants of the pandemic and all of that, but there's like this trickle down effect of like the transportation system's off. You know, even in Marlena's work, she's having a hard time getting things moved from here to here. Okay. I talked to one person this week that said that they have a trunking company with 850 trucks, but right now they only have 800 drivers. So they're literally trying to hire 50 drivers just to keep trucks on the road.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting. So some of the side effects trickle down of the pandemic, and it's like once you think you're out of it, there's this whole nother thing that you didn't even see coming that have even at Starbucks. They're like, yeah, because of supply chain issues, there's certain things you can't get at Starbucks right now. Thankful caramel is back. It was gone for about 2 weeks.
Let me tell you something that's not being affected by the worker shortage.
All right.
The world's longest yard sale, which starts tomorrow.
That's the one that goes up to Pikeville, Tennessee?
Well, it goes from Gadsden, Alabama, all the way up to Michigan.
Oh,
so it's the world's longest yard sale. It's like 690 miles. I'm going to go again tomorrow morning.
To Michigan?
No, to Gadsden.
Okay.
Well, it's so crazy.
Wow.
I know I've talked about it before. I mean, it's a fun cultural event so you go, I'll go down early tomorrow morning, go to Gadsden, but then you follow 127 and then, it's a variety of, mostly 127.
I know 127.
Well, I'm glad you're cleaning my head up.
That goes by Fall Creek Falls and all of that.
Right. Mintown. You go, so anyway, it's fascinating, but then you go to Tennessee, Kentucky, and you go right on up Ohio, Michigan, Now I'm just going to go through Alabama. I may
Gadsden to Pikeville. I think that should be done.
But even it's goes up just north of Chattanooga, so Signal Mountain it goes through, and
right, and that's Pikeville,
right, all the way
just above that.
Okay, just there.
That's where I've seen it, because this time of year, apparently, I've gone to Fall Creek Falls, and I'm like, what? And it's like the world, and it's like on everywhere. It's just on big giant open meadows and pastures. There's people with tables,
right?
Just off the side of the road, and it's just like pull over, and
it's like incessant shopping. Now, of course, I sell for a living on eBay, so
which means you also buy for a living.
I buy for a living, and is
it a buyer's market right now?
Part of it is just a fun environment. I don't know.
Okay,
now that's now again. Now there are a few places more COVID related, I believe, that like maybe some retailer places along the way that may not be doing it this year or may not be participating, but gobs of people still are. I have no idea. So that's a really good question of what the market is going to be like. Well, but it looks like there are a lot of people are going to be out selling.
Okay. Well, it's because we know right now, at least in Huntsville, real estate, big time seller's market. I mean, people are literally offering $20,000 more than the asking price, just hoping to get in line, just trying to sort of get in the queue of bidding, which is crazy.
And cars, we've seen the same thing. We've talked about that, how that market. So yes, I'm very curious because it's interesting, unexpected things. Like right now, the collectibles market is just going through the roof as well.
Really?
So I think like a Patrick Mahomes card sold a week ago. Guess the amount for a Patrick Mahomes rookie card.
100,000. I literally have no idea.
4.3 million.
No, you're kidding, right? No. You're making that up. No.
No, we're talking, and it's just a weird thing in this season.
I literally have no place in my brain for that.
With COVID, and so some people out of work,
whatever. Piece of paper with his picture on it?
Yes. It's possible. I don't recall that he may have signed it.
It's a photo.
Oh yes.
It's like a Rembrandt now.
No, you can't even. So sports collectibles. Again, a Brady card recently, a few weeks ago, sold for millions. That's actually a market I would have thought. Oh, I would have thought that's going to go down. No.
Well, I thought during the pandemic, your business would go really well because people have less to do. Everyone's shopping online.
Right.
We've talked about how I think that changes things probably from this point on.
Right.
But have you seen any dip this year, 2021, in your eBay business?
No. But other than, summer usually every year tends to slow down a little bit.
Okay.
People are getting outdoors and some of that kind of thing. But in reality, I've barely seen that. And again, most of what I sell is discretionary stuff.
Okay.
It's not need to have kinds of things. And so a lot of people, for whatever the reasons are behind that, they're buying a lot of those kind of things. So it's just, I didn't see that coming, and I'd be curious what the dynamic of.
Well, I did some numbers yesterday, just in terms of my counseling ministry, and I was looking at appointments and all that. I'm on schedule now, post-pandemic, to have over 400 appointments this year. It's like 250 through the end of July. So that has really, grown again. And in fact, I was talking to some folks that I've referred to others, and they can't get in for literally months to get into a counselor.
So a year and a half ago, I remember all of your excitement about stepping more into speaking ministry. And I know you're still doing that. And then we had COVID came in with all its tragic consequences, life altering for so many people. For you, it meant kind of the speaking ministry went away for a while.
Yep.
But was that when counseling just sort of took off?
The COVID year, no, counseling dropped from 540 appointments in 2019. Okay. That was my banner year.
Okay.
To around 260. So literally in half.
Okay.
On during the pandemic.
So what you're saying is it's bouncing back.
It's bouncing back, and I think speaking is going to make a comeback.
Right.
You know, I hope to. Hey, I haven't told our listeners about this really cool thing that I did.
They're dying to know, I'm sure.
So right before I went out to the Sierras, I did a keynote talk for the Speak Up conference.
Okay.
Which had like 500 people all over the country. And I did a talk called Undivided, How to Disagree Without Being Disagreeable. Did we talk about, I know we've talked about that on the podcast. The idea, yes. All that being said, like 15 minutes after we finished the session, I get a note from the conference director that said, hey, a publisher wants to get your information. They want a book proposal on that topic because they believe it's so important.
Oh gosh.
In this season. The whole idea is, and I've thought about maybe a subtitle for that. If I do it as a book, Undivided, an urgent plea for the church to return to the way of Christ. Because all I'm really talking about, if I was to sum up the whole book, it would be like Jesus, be nice and listen. You know, listen a whole lot more than you talk. And because we've been in a season, and I realize this is a talk that's been brewing for 5 years with the political stuff going on, with the racial stuff going on, even the pandemic stuff, vaxxer, anti-vaxxer, masker, anti-mask, everything's polarized.
Right.
And it's like one chapter I'm working on in my head is called "You're Talking So Loud I Can't Hear You." And it's this whole thing of we're getting more and more elevated and emotional in the way that we share things, and it's not changing people's minds. And in one sense, it makes them more staunch in their own position,
and us more staunch in ours.
Sure, exactly.
Right.
Oh yeah.
The louder we yell,
are we talking louder right now? I feel like we are.
Well, the louder we're talking is almost like this very.
It's a subtle intimidation or even bullying.
Right. But it's certainly sending a very strong message.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change. I don't need to change.
And I ain't listening.
Right. And I ain't listening. Right. So, but you're right. What that does for me, absolutely, when someone is in that yell mode or that, my defenses start going up. But this is what I'm seeing, right? It's just so much of, let's also just call it unteachability.
Can I write?
Well, in other words, that's just.
I gotta write that down. No, because that's a great.
This is me contributing to another one of Bruce's great talks.
But that's so good. It's unteachability because it says I have nothing to learn from you.
Right.
Because we believe different on one thing, I have nothing to learn. This
is just right now. I just see us more and more settling into a posture of unteachability. And I read a verse yesterday. Oh, this is great. You can appreciate this at a lot of levels. Okay. So Proverbs 12:1, New International Version says, he who loves correction, loves knowledge, but he who loves discipline loves knowledge.
This is Proverbs 12:1?
12:1. But he who hates correction is stupid.
Oh, I saw your Facebook. I almost listened to it. Your Facebook video
is stupid. But listen, now part of the fun of it is
we could never say stupid.
We couldn't say stupid when we were kids. And so I looked this up for the fun
I
of
bet
it.
you we could say you're unteachable.
I
think that would be okay.
You know what I looked up? So I looked up in the King James Version. Well, stupid isn't in the King James Version anywhere.
Okay, what is the word they use?
Okay. So a New International Version has the word stupid 5 times and 1 in this Proverbs. Well, I looked up King James Version and it said, he who hates correction is brutish. So I looked up brutish and it said characteristic of or having to do with a brute.
You can't do that. That's not a definition.
I know.
Why? I want to talk to the Webster people. You can't use the root word in the definition. No, it doesn't help.
So then I had to look up brute.
What does season mean? Well, it comes from the word season.
Right.
And
right. No, it's just so I had to look up the word brute.
I bet stupid came up somewhere.
No, it didn't. It was just it was a dangerously violent person or animal. So either way, he who hates correction is stupid or an animal.
Or dangerous.
or a dangerous
both.
Animal, right.
Yeah.
And I was thinking how vivid. So the two things that hit me, first of all, okay, as kids, comically, so we were not allowed to say the word stupid. We couldn't call someone stupid. But then I looked and said,
say brutish.
That's what we should have done.
Roger's being brutish.
He's a brute.
Yeah, that really works.
You're such a brute.
Yes, it's true.
So we didn't take advantage of that because that would have been.
I remember we used to like to say dung because we could say that because it was in the King James. We couldn't say all the other words for dung.
Well, the word piss was also in the King James.
Yes, it was against a wall, as I recall.
But I think that still was not allowed. We still were not allowed to say that.
Nope.
So we try to anyway get those, but this posture of unteachability, just a frank word. Just God said that's stupid. It's stupid because that's what blocks you from learning.
You'll never grow and develop. You'll never mature.
Right.
This is that. So hey,
he who loves discipline loves knowledge, loves learning.
Right.
Which God loves.
Quick aside.
Yeah.
Have your book sales gone through the roof?
No.
I pitched your book during the talk. I did, partly wrong because it's such an important book. I won't pitch it again right now. Partly wrong. Partly wrong. Partly wrong. That's an Asian American mix.
Which seems entirely inappropriate.
Okay. Partly wrong by Roger Martin. But it is that whole thing of, and you talk about why we should embrace that. Well, that verse says we should embrace that.
Right.
Instead of thinking I'm always right, which, we'd all like to write that book. I'm always right. It's the Rush is right. All of that movement. And I realized, because I was talking to another client this week about family origins and those things. And this person also grew up in a family where being right was super important. Mm-hmm. Being right about something. And I'm like, how often do we sacrifice marriages, relationships to be right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I would rather be wrong and in relationship than right and alone.
But it's that weird thing. Here's that weird other side of that is that sometimes we don't want to be right. We just want what we want. What I mean is...
we don't care about whether it's right or not. Right. We just want what we want.
Exactly. So one of the things I was pressing into, even when I was reading this proverb...
Yeah.
I was like, okay, one of the reasons I hate correction is I don't like being wrong. Mm-hmm. But worse, I don't like someone telling me I'm wrong.
I don't like someone telling me what to do.
Right. If I'm wrong, I'll figure it out myself. I want to figure it out. I want someone else telling me. But then the other thing that dawned on me is sometimes I don't care if I'm wrong. The thought that it came to was like when we were kids and I punched you and I got in trouble. That was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. Well, I didn't care because it was fun. I wanted to do it. In other words, so as much as being right matters, we're selective.
Yeah.
Because unteachability is
stupid.
Is a way of saying,
yeah,
I don't care whether I'm right or wrong if there's a thing that I want. So this is where I press into, even in some of these issues that you've already brought up some of them. I think about the race question, and
right.
So many race questions. Is there racial injustice? Is it systemic? How does God feel about it? Is that something that Christians should be tackling or ignoring or whatever? All of these questions, I realize there are ideas that I want to believe, the ideas that I want to be true that can keep me from pressing into whether they are. What I want to believe can keep me from pressing into what may actually be true, what may actually be right. So sometimes, excuse me, that throat's real funny today. Anyway, I should have brought my drink.
I got my drink. I'm keeping my vocal cords nice and moist.
All right.
So what you're arguing is sometimes being stupid is when I don't care if I'm wrong. I just want to keep doing it.
Right. In other words, yes.
And isn't that also the definition of insanity? We're going to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results.
Right. Part of it is this. Yes. Just
so.
Yeah, go on.
Well, I'm just saying, and now it makes me wonder, so what areas of my life have I been unteachable? Or am I continuing right now to be unteachable?
And almost always.
You almost don't want to ask that question.
it's two things that can be behind that. Either I don't think I'm wrong, or I don't care if I'm wrong. Where I'll unpack that is, I think we can subtly come to certain places. I don't know there's anybody who's going to say, oh, I'm not wrong on anything. But how many of us in any given area? Well, when it comes to race issue, I can't be wrong on that. I couldn't possibly be wrong. Or if we just, where we've literally come to, or our religious beliefs, our denomination, our whatever, we've come to a place we can't be wrong. I was listening to just even a conversation of people talking about how in religion, there's this tendency for us to just idealize. We are the purest form. So if we think about the church,
yeah.
Well, yeah. Again, it's very common for Catholics. It traces back. You trace it back to the true church,
the Apostle Peter.
We're the true church. Well, you look at the Reformed tradition. We're the true church, but even within the Reformed tradition, well, we're the ones who carry the purest banner. Some have gotten off, but this tendency for all of us, we grew up with that.
Oh yeah.
Our line, our Baptist line.
And this is where you end up on an island, and the island gets smaller and smaller as you continue to subdivide the island. And then it's really just you standing on a rock at the end of it. And that's that thing where, and even the point of that whole talk was, if I'm going to be standing on any rock alone, let that rock be Jesus, but nothing else. In other words, I can work with people across denominations, race, even faith backgrounds. I spent 4 years with Faith in Action, working with different faith groups to common purposes.
Right.
But the rock that I stand on is that rock of Christ.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to make all these subdivisions based on everything else. The other thing, and I may have mentioned this, I'm getting so old, I can't even remember what we've talked about half the time. But I realized,
because we don't have to have a script.
No, I was sharing with someone the other day. I just don't. It's not. The older I get, the less important it is to me to have an opinion on everything. I can't have an informed opinion on everything. A, I'm not that smart. B, I'm not that informed. In other words, I can read one thing in this newspaper or in this article or in this blog post and think I know something, but I realize there's a counterpoint to that somewhere. And it's not that you can't know truth. It's just that I don't need to have an opinion on everything.
Right.
Even when I think Marlene and I were talking this morning about vaccinations and not and yes and no and go and, and I was vaccinated months ago, partly because I work in an office with people. And so Marlene is thinking about, going this week. She goes, but I'm also a little concerned because, we know stories of people that have passed after. I personally know a story of a gentleman that passed young post-vaccination, got COVID symptoms, died. But then others that have the vaccination get COVID, no problem, very mild symptom. We don't know.
Right.
And it's that thing. So if I start pointing a finger, well, you are, because you're not vaccinated, you're a threat. And Marlena made a great point this morning. What about people like Bruce, that because I'm vaccinated, I could actually be carrying coronavirus in my nose and not know it, thus making me a threat to, it's just one of those things we don't know.
Right.
So,
but there's again, another thing that blocks teachability is moralizing everyone's position. So again, where this thing is, we have a difference of opinion, and it's not just, so we could we look at the opinion, we could listen and say, I want to listen what this person, why they believe in vaccination, why this person doesn't. But what so often blocks that is I moralize it. So I've already I stigmatize, I put a negative, and I realize, Bruce, this I think is a pervasive part of what went wrong when sin came into the world. I feel this pervasive pull to believe the negative story about almost everything, whatever a group, whatever position, whatever. I just find myself, even everyday life. Why did Joy do this thing? Why did Bruce do this thing? Why does this group? Or I think I so often project a negative. I so often project. So I come to the vaccination question. One of these things that then blocks. Once I moralize a thing and make it a
Well,
a right or wrong.
Right, you baptize or demonize.
Right,
We've talked about that.
or demonize. Once I do that, it shuts down learning, because this is not two people trying to figure out their way. In other words, this is where I just see where vaxxers and non-vaxxers are just more lobbing grenades or accusations rather than, I want to hear the read. If someone is getting vaccinated, if they're not, I think I may have mentioned this, I almost wrote a blog, I perhaps should have at one point, why I got vaccinated, why I waited, and why both stories matter. And my point with that was the core point was going to be, what are the reasons? The key is, what are the reasons behind? We immediately, so we'll just say that if people are against vaccinating, well, they don't love others. It's automatic. Here's the story. Here's the narrative.
Well, that happened even last year. If you're not wearing masks, you're killing others. You don't care about other people.
You don't care about, you're just, so we're not at all asking the questions why some people are, right? I still remember sitting in a store with a gal. She was so apologetic, but she was just saying about a mask. She said, with my asthma and so on, this just so aggravates.
I know another lady that would have a panic attack every time she put it on because she felt like she couldn't breathe.
Right. So what's the story? But what, and why do we always go why do I so often go to the negatives? Or why do I first go to they just don't care about people, rather than first go to, I wonder if they have a health condition.
So Roger, it's the difference between condemnation and curiosity. I was just writing down. We've lost our ability to just be curious. I'm curious to know why this person thinks that. Curiosity is good.
Right.
At the end of the day, I might still come to a different place on that thing.
Right.
But to condemn, this goes back to that whole Romans 12 through 14, disputable matters passage.
Right,
That's where I started this whole talk on this thing. And I realized we're disputing over even what matters are disputable. So it's kind of like you can't even have a curious talk about a disputable matter, because in other words, that's not even disputable. Can we pretend, just for the sake of argument, that it is disputable? So I realize curiosity versus condemnation is a good thing. I think we're afraid if we ask curious questions, well, people will use the slippery slope thing or whatever the slippery slope is. We want to stay off it. But if I ask curious questions, it might actually change my mind.
Well, but that's the scary part.
Right. Well,
because now I'm bumping up against, I'm raising the possibility I could be wrong. When I shut it down, when I'm the one talking louder and louder and talking down people, I'm entrenching myself. But what can be guarding that? Is my own fear of being wrong. I don't want to open up the fact that could be wrong, especially on something I'm fairly passionate about.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I've felt that in me before.
I feel it all the time. There's still things. Here's the thing. There's still things I'm passionate about.
Right.
And when I hear someone that is speaking from a different frame, I have my hackles go up internally.
Right.
I'm doing better. I'm doing much better about listening. But it's because it's not that we're not going to be passionate about certain things. I just love that the way Paul kind of finishes that passage. Just accept others as Christ has accepted you.
Right.
My gosh, that just seems like a good idea.
Right.
Christ has accepted me. You know what? I'm partly wrong. Mm-hmm. Christ still accepts me. He's like, well, I can't hang out with Bruce anymore. He's wrong about these 3 things. These are important. But he doesn't.
I think it's more than 3. You just said Jesus thinks you're wrong about 3 things.
I was generalizing, Roger. Okay. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept. Yes.
I think the places you're wrong could number in the thousands. 3. Maybe. 3 is a pretty.
Okay, let me go back and revamp my whole talk there. I can't be friends with Bruce because there's thousands and thousands and thousands.
No, I would be cared I would like to hear the 3 things you're wrong on, and then we're all good.
Well, I thought you were my friend. That's the first one I was wrong about. And
you thought this podcast was going to go 45 minutes, but we're going out now.
No, we're not. We're a 45-minute. Unless I'm real busy, we're a 45.
Like last time.
We're a 45-minute podcast.
Right.
Are we long form, short form, or medium form?
I do not even know what that means.
I think we're medium form. So long form is people that podcast for 3 hours.
Okay. No, I'm just learning. I'm learning here right now. I'm listening.
There's a space for that. I don't have a space for that. I like your genre of 5-minute Facebook.
It's 10.
Facecast.
It's 10.
Well, you get 5 from me.
Yeah, you check out after.
Oh, so you'll love this. Roger did the analytics on the Inglorious Pastords worldwide. And stay with me, people. This is great. The average listen time is 4 seconds. So this is what people hear. Hey, it's another edition of the Inglorious Pastords.
Edition?
We're out. I mean, that's it. Well, I'm partly wrong.
That's partly wrong.
Well, you said Trishan a minute ago when you meant to say tradition.
I'm going to tell you, for all that grief you've been giving me about the wing.
Oh, and don't do that at my son's wedding.
At a wedding ceremony. Now,
Roger,
I've got you on partly wrong. Partly wing.
Oh, Lord of mercy.
Yeah, we've got. Don't let this laughing get out of hand. That's for sure.
So I think another humility and curiosity, those kind of go together. I ended up the talks that I did even in the wilderness for, I think I did like 13 devotionals out there. It's out of Colossians 3.
Mm-hmm.
It talked about, therefore, since you're holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, gentleness, patience, forbearance, forgiving grievances that you have with each other, and then put on the overcoat of love, which binds them all together in perfect
Mm-hmm.
unity. All of that to say, I spent a lot of time on humility and on gentleness, because it feels like it's something that we've lost in our culture. Yeah. And it's something that I struggle with, because again, even talking louder, even if I'm in Marlena, if I'm trying to make my point, the more I escalate my voice, the more Marlena understandably checks out. Mm-hmm. Because there's a gentleness. And isn't it what?
Yes.
Yes. But scripture says, let your gentleness be evident to all. Somewhere in Philippians 4. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
And think about that. Let your gentleness be evident to all. That's just good.
Harmless as doves.
Yeah.
There's a gentle.
Right. You just wouldn't say being naive, but be harmless.
Right.
And that's an interest. Oh, well, we could spend a lot of time.
No, gentleness, right. Gentleness is a fruit of the Spirit. Mm-hmm. It's this is when the Spirit of God is active in you and you're allowing the Spirit to bear fruit and you're not locking the Spirit down. One of the fruits that's going to come out is gentleness, and another one is humility.
Roger, that's how Jesus described his heart.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting? Because I am gentle and humble in heart.
Humble of heart, yeah.
That Rika McRoy pointed that out to me in a teaching team meeting that we're in. I'm like, I've never thought about that. She goes, Jesus reveals his heart right here.
Yeah.
The only place I can remember where he reveals his heart. Gentle and humble in heart.
And it's always been fascinating that the greatest person in the world, with all the power, all the authority, is the most humble.
And the most gentle.
Asking questions, listening, and whatever that mystery was around, even as a human walking our planet, learning. And humility and learning go hand in hand. I think this, even when you go to that proverb, he who loves discipline loves knowledge. This is a humble person. It's why humility is such in short supply, because we tend to hate correction. We tend to bristle. We tend to resist. But the humble person is just constantly walking there. Yeah, I'm partly wrong. And so I want to be listening and learning. Where am I? A humble person, humble and listening are impossibly intertwined. It's why your best listeners are humble. That's if we're trying to even put because it was always funny, the word humility, well, how do you know when you have it? Well, that was kind of, one is you listen a lot.
Yeah.
Which is just the posture of, I don't have to control a conversation.
Right.
I'm wrong on some things. I have some things to learn from you. And I'll tell you, isn't it just refreshing, particularly in our current, to have someone who listens for any length of time? I wonder if sometimes
for any length of time. Yes.
I wonder if sometimes that's what people are going to counselor for, because it's a paid listener, and nobody else much is listening.
Yeah.
I just a thought that just hit me.
Well, and what hit me is then, and there's an allusion to what Jesus teaches on this that I want to come to. But so what do you do when someone brings correction to you and you believe that they're incorrect? Mm-hmm. Humility still listens.
Yes.
Humility says, hey, let me process that. But as I was thinking through that while you were talking, I wasn't listening to you. I was thinking of something else.
Yes, that's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
I just so love that.
But it's this whole thing of, I remember there's been times where people have come to me with a correction and I'm like, gosh, I appreciate that, but I don't actually think I'm wrong on that. Or I don't think I've done anything wrong on that. And Jesus talks about if someone has something against you or you have something against them, take it to them. And if it can't be established that correction is needed, bring a few other people into that, even the humility of bringing a few other people into it. In other words, if I'm just like, well, no, I'm right, and I'm going to correct Roger on this thing, I'm assuming that I can't possibly be wrong in this correction that I'm offering. Roger's like, yeah, I'm not feeling it, Bruce. Can we talk to a couple of other guys?
And do we really want to bring somebody else in if it could raise the possibility that I could be wrong?
That I could be wrong. Right.
I'm happy to bring in reinforcements for me, right?
Right. Oh, and
people who come in and I know some people who will come in and fully take my position.
And Roger, when I've taught on that passage, I said, and when you bring 2 or 3 so that the matter can be established, make sure it's friends of the person you're seeking to correct, not your friends, but people that know this person. Because if they're friends, they're going to be willing to say, yeah, I think that's a problem, or no, I think that's just the way Roger is.
I had a thought and I lost it.
Because you were listening. You were actually listening.
Well, I think
Roger actually models and demonstrates what we talk about on the Pastors. I ruminate on it and apparently don't do it.
No, I am working at listening more. And as much as I've talked about that, or even as you noted, wrote a book that highlighted that, I realize still how much work that is, particularly just the part of it that is open to learning where I might be wrong and then need to make a change. I need to make a shift. I need to turn.
He who loves correction loves knowledge.
Who loves discipline.
Loves discipline, loves
right
knowledge. But he who
hates correction
is stupid.
And
or brutish.
Right. So I don't want to be what I appreciate about that.
Brutish and stupid even means they remain unlearned.
Right. We don't think
because they're unteachable, they remain unlearned.
Right.
It's like you can choose to be illiterate if you don't want to learn how to read.
Right.
But you don't have to.
We talk about, right. We might even talk about a stupid beast, or we might talk about dumb. They don't know, they don't know what we know. But part of the proverb, we're doing the same thing. We're just being like an animal that just
Roger. Yeah. That's it. Here's this difference between stupid and ignorant. Ignorant means I literally don't know.
Right.
So if a person brings correction and I'm smart, I can actually know. But if I refuse correction, now I'm not ignorant. I'm actually stupid. Think about it.
That's good.
Ignorant means I don't know what I don't know.
That's good. Yeah.
And but now when a person reveals knowledge to me and I'm like, nope, don't want it. That apparently is stupid.
So stupid is refusing to
acknowledge to learn.
I could be ignorant.
Right. Yeah.
Right. In other words,
I'm ignorant of my ignorance.
And it's the comedy. I've laughed at this before. It's like we view ignorant as a term of derision or as a negative. You're so ignorant. Well, I could say that to the person in the mirror. You're so ignorant. Well, of course.
I'm ignorant of all sorts of things.
I'm ignorant of thousands of things. You're ignorant of 3 things, but I'm ignorant of thousands of things.
I said I was wrong about 3 things.
You said you were wrong.
No, I was referencing your book as partly wrong.
And then you said you were wrong about 3 things, and Jesus was going to correct you on those. And Jesus alone.
Jesus was white.
You did not just say that.
Well, now after it came out, I'm like, oh, that's ridiculous. Now we're gonna. I was being Elmer Fudd. Okay, you wascally wabbit. You.
Well, we don't need that in a wedding ceremony. We don't need it for a book title.
Don't need it in a podcast. Oh gosh.
So whenever, just a word, whenever you're officiating a wedding, you really don't want to say, now, do you have the wing? because
me and my brother David,
your brother's in the front row,
on the front row,
will actually check out and become an enormous distraction
without even looking at each other. Because I knew I can't look at David, but I can see in my peripheral, he's shaking as well. We're both just shaking. We're like, Roger just said, do you have the wing as a symbol of your pledge?
But I think at some level, part of our growth could even be the fact that you get to a place where you can laugh about where you're wrong. You can laugh about mistakes you've made. You can laugh about ignorance. You can, and I have seen, I'm not saying I'm great with that, but I'm better. And it's a sign I'm less stupid.
Yeah. And I read a quote yesterday that I just wanted to think about. It said something that better a failure that leads to humility than a success that leads to arrogance. And I'm like, sure. That's a little proverb for our day. There are certain things that obviously you'll only learn through failure, but one of them is you learn humility.
Yeah.
You're like, I didn't do that right. Or I didn't do that well.
Turns out that was a bad idea.
I did that poorly.
I thought I knew what was going to happen there. I thought I knew what was best. And yes.
Yeah, I've had some epic failures before.
Oh yeah.
Those happen. It's real.
The black spray paint can, I think we've
talked about that. There was the Princeton Auto that I started and I ran that corporation for 2 weeks. And it basically came to an end when I got the business cards and receipts and invoices done. And Mom looked at it and said, "Didn't you mean Pristine Auto?"
And no, that's not what I was thinking of.
No, Princeton. You know, like Dr. Princeton, the great car cleaner of all times. No. That's what I meant.
No, Mom, you are wrong. So wrong.
So long, everybody. Pastords out.
Out for today.
I think we're going off early.
I'm glad we could help you learn a new place where you were wrong. And where you were wrong was thinking you didn't need correction.
Hey, and did you know that the snake podcast, that one really had a spike in listeners? Apparently snakes, people like to talk about that.
Well, it could have been the fact that it was 30 minutes long.
Well, if the average person only listens 4 seconds, I don't know that it matters really how long it goes.
We're just trying to bump our listenership up to 8 seconds.
Yeah.
All right.
Partly Wong. That every time I thought about